Russian President Vladimir Putin never misses St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. That's one of his favorite creations. He always speaks there every year. Usually everything goes great, except for this time, 2025. Things went horribly wrong for Vladimir Putin. Wow. Howdy everyone, my name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will find plenty of truth, common sense and logic, and emotions, because hey, I'm a human being after all, and you will not find BS propaganda and fakes and lies. I have a very interesting topic today, and this topic illustrates more how Russia is feverish now and how things are changing, and the political landscape that, from at a glance seems unshakable, solid. Perhaps we start seeing the cracks. St. Petersburg International Economic Forum and its people, its guests, speakers. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and later I'll just call it the Forum or the Economic Forum. It is a sign that Russia is an authoritarian failed state. Stop right there. Before you pick up your rock and start throwing it at me, especially Russians, I know this forum is your pride and joy. You enjoy its glitz and glamour. I know that, but let me explain first. The forum is Russia's only event, the biggest one, and the only event of that magnitude in Russia. Nothing stands anywhere close to the forum. It is a show-off event for Vladimir Putin and other masters of Russia. The term is often used in Russia is the Russian elites. It's commonly used to describe these people, but I'm a simple guy and I like to simplify things, so I call them who they are, the rulers or the masters. The masters also fits pretty well. So the forum is one big party for the rulers. The glamorous, rich, excessive party. Let me give you an analogy. I was trying to figure out an analogy for you, and this is the best one I've come up with. Imagine it's the USA, June 2025. The entire Washington, D.C. gets blocked, no people allowed. Big warehouses like temporary buildings are erected quickly, and for 4 days, they get filled with the US president, his family, his crew, the inner circle, the senators, the congressmen, the political elite of the United States, the party donors, and of course the tech billionaires. A ticket to this event would cost around $1 million per person. So that ensures that there are no regular folks there, just the politicians and those who are behind them, and the super rich. In this forum, this event would be called this grandiose festivities, grandiose show-off. It would be called the Forum of America. And it'd be constantly televised for 4 days. And entire America would be only watching this spectacular, continuous party. Imagined? Well, that's what the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is all about. Of course, it wasn't always like that. For about a decade or so, the forum was the place to come to showcase your business, get some PR, meet investors, or find interesting projects if you're an investor, and network. That was priceless. My former company, a large general contractor That was priceless. We were building power plants, large power plants. Participated in the economic forum in 2010 and 2011. And I remember quite well because I was the BDO's chief business executive officer of the company, and I was in charge of marketing, among other things, and that was my department. So my employees were organizing that. I remember quite well. I remember, we back in 2011, we built a small manufacturing plant for HV circuit breakers, high voltage circuit breakers. And we built it jointly with the French company Alstom. And then later it was acquired by GE. And we made a presentation of our plant there. And it was a big fanfare, and the entire country learned that we built a plant. Okay, we put ourselves on the map. And it really was just economic forum, a ritzy one, but not too ritzy, okay? Normal ritzy, if you know what I mean. Unlike now. There weren't any drugs, there weren't any prostitutes, there wasn't much of excess. I personally enjoyed the event. A sign that we meant something, we reached a certain height, okay? And on one occasion, there was even Putin walking around, and it wasn't craziness like right now. They block off the entire city when he comes in, He was just walking among people back then with plenty of security, but still. Now, remember that I said that the forum now is a sign that Russia is an authoritarian failed state. Why? Because the forum fits well into Putin's Russia. The forum is kind of a crown jewel. There are two classes of people in Russia, the rulers and the serfs. And St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is the party for the rulers, for the higher class. And if you are a force in Russia, if you really have power, if you are somewhere on the upper levels of the vertical of power, then you by all means are a part of St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. It's a must. And if you are not a part of the forum, if you are not interviewed, if you are not at least participating, mingling with those who are interviewed, if you are not invited to the event when the Tsar speaks, then you are nobody in Russia. And you don't belong to the ruler class. It is an attribute of a very primitive social system based on raw force and violence. See, the vertical of power, the system that governs Russia, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum fits perfectly well into the vertical of power. I'd say that the forum started falling apart after the annexation of Crimea, 2014, because the economy started dying. The independent companies started, first, they started doing worse and worse, and it was becoming so much more difficult to do business in Russia. And then, the state came in and started controlling more and more. And right now, there are simply no independent large businesses, corporations. The very few that remain, they are targets of vultures. The KGB, the powers that govern Russia, they're just being torn apart. Okay, that's the hunt season for Russian independent businesses. And this simply St. Petersburg International Economic Forum as the platform for businesses to come together, exchange, exchange information, do presentations, it's rendered useless. It's not needed. Okay, that's why, to me, this forum that used to be a good place to be if you were doing business in Russia, then now it's just a sign of a failed state. Now, the forum in 2025 was a party and a circus full of prostitutes. But this year marks a very different, I would say a turn into the history of the economic forums. Vladimir Putin showed himself to be incredibly detached from reality. Vladimir Putin got slapped in the face by his servants, and Vladimir Putin gave us the glimpse of what the succession of power in the future might look like. Before I talk about it, I would like to take a little pause, sip this wonderful English breakfast tea, and this is mid-roll, halfway through my video, and I would like to introduce the sponsor of this channel. His name is Konstantin. Yeah, I know him personally. A good guy, really. He sponsors Inside Russia. That guy is sitting in front of you. I don't have any other sponsors. Instead, I'd like to take this time and thank you. And I can't really call you sponsors because to me, you're not sponsors. To me, you are friends and members of Inside Russia community. And I want to thank you for being just that, a part of Inside Russia community. To me, community is the most important thing about YouTube. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking my videos, for commenting, engaging in conversations. Thank you, engaging in live streams, chats. And this is what I'm going to do right after this message, and I invite everyone to carry on in the live stream chat. Thank you for your messages, for your prayers, and for your love. Thank you for your support, for the coffee that you buy me at buymeacoffee.com, at Patreon, PayPal. I'm demonetized, and it's going on 11th month now. But I give you a promise that despite being demonetized by Google and not earning anything from this channel, from Google, I continue my stand against Russian government, against unfairness, against the war, and I continue telling you the truth. You have my word on that. Thank you very much. And now, back to the message. And by the way, I really would appreciate it if you like this message. So the more likes I get, the more people get to watch this message. The more people YouTube shows this thumbnail and title and my video, and then more people click. So thank you so very much. This forum in 2025 showed us very clearly that Vladimir Putin lives in a separate universe. His reality is so detached. In his universe, and then Vladimir Putin made a speech about that. I was thinking of showing you the speech, but then I'll just give you a brief summary. He talked about his universe, and it turns out in his universe, Russian economy is doing as strong as ever. It has successfully circumvented the sanctions, and Russia has finally got up from its knees. The inflation is under control, and the central bank and the Ministry of Finance did a wonderful job care of the economy. So the inflation is low, and that Russian people are certainly enjoying that. Russian economy is number one in Europe, and Russia is on technological cutting edge of things. In Putin's universe, there are no major problem in the economy. Russia is number one, the economy number one in Europe, and economy number 5 in the world. That is not true, but that's his universe, in his universe, there is nothing to worry about. There are no problems in the country, in the society, and in the economy. And the war? Well, it's there. Yes, it's there. We're used to it, well, in his universe, and there's nothing to worry about. It's been going on for 3.5 years. Well, no one's died. Well, some have died, but you know what I mean. Putin to Putin, everything's fine, Gotta get used to it. And we have gotten used to it, Putin says. Russia is fine. Russians are not complaining about the war. And those who are complaining, well, they're forced to leave Russia. And those who don't leave, don't flee, they're taken care of. So no one is complaining about the war. And the civil economy, that used to be Russian economy. The war economy in Russia didn't exist. But now things are different, and the civil economy is just a service part of the war economy. The civil economy exists to serve the economy of the war. And we all understand now that in Putin's economy, in Putin's universe, the war is everlasting. It's not going to stop. That's literally the speech that he gave at the Economic Forum. But he said things before. He said crazy things like that before. But what is interesting now, the reality is too far from Putin's universe. If 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even 1 year ago, things were better in the economy, right now, it's just too far gone, okay? At the same time, the officials, the rulers of lower rank, those who really are responsible for the economy, it turned out that they don't live in Putin's universe. And that was a revelation for me. They live in Russia. They live in the real world. And they spoke very differently from Putin. They were not sitting in the same room with Putin, but they were sitting right next door, and they were speaking almost simultaneously. But they spoke of completely different things from Putin. For example, the Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, was saying that how things are. He was saying that the reserves that Russia had are gone. And the state spends too much and earns too little. It spends too much to support the war economy, and it earns too little because of the sanctions, because oil and gas are sold at lower prices and less is sold. And businesses are dying, so therefore they generate less money for the economy. The expenses from this to this, and the revenues from this to this. And we had reserves, but it cannot go on like this because reserves have been used up. And recession, economic recession, is the next step. Elvira Nabiulina, the name that you have heard from me, must have heard 1,000 times. The head of Russia's central bank said the same thing, almost in the same words. The reserves are gone, spent, and there is nothing to keep the economy going. So the recession is right there, not on the horizon, but right in front of us. So they used very odd words. They didn't say, no one is saying officially the recession. Everyone is afraid to say that word. Instead, they're saying extreme cooling of the economy. Cooling from extreme overheating. Things like that. They're very, very creative like that. And Maxim Reshetnikov even said that our economy is not looking good whatsoever, but it's like looking at the economy at the rear view mirror in the car. So go figure. I mean, that just takes the prize for creativity. Now, who are these people were saying, and it wasn't just I gave you two names, but pretty much most of officials who are in charge of the economy or work in the agencies who are, supposed to regulate the economy, they all spoke in a similar manner. Who they were saying that to, and why they were saying that. They're not politicians. They don't need to tell the truth. They can sugarcoat, they can keep silent, they can say anything they want, because the only person they're not in charge. They don't need to win voters in Russia. Okay, they are put into their seats. They're given jobs by one and only ruler of Russia, the Tsar himself. And then when they speak, they don't need to aim at regular people. They could care less. Their only audience, again, the one and only, Vladimir Putin. They need him to hear what they're saying. And why they're doing that? Because, hey, a year and a half ago, remember the elections, right before the elections, Elvira Nabiulina was sugarcoating like, oh my goodness. In March of 2024, right before the elections, presidential elections, everything was fine. She tackled down the inflation. It was under complete control. Economic slowdown was going to be over by the end of 2024, and things would be steady and robust growth in Russian economy for years to come. And she was giving year 25, 26, 27, and so forth. And now she comes back and she says a completely different thing. She doesn't sugarcoat. She basically tells it how it is in soft words, but hey, the meaning is there. So why? Why all of a sudden such a change? Because they have the ground under their feet on fire, and that is very important. Them speaking against what Putin was saying is a sign of extreme disturbance. They understand that whatever Putin is saying and the reality are two different things. They understand the real situation in the economy. They understand Russia is already in the recession, deep. They understand the concept of the economic tsunami, that the country's economy is going down. It's already there, near the bottom somewhere, okay? They start feeling the heat. And the most important thing is, someone will have to answer for this situation. It certainly is not going to be the Tsar. The Tsar is not responsible. Let's give me a break. Of course not. The Tsar cannot make mistakes. The Tsar is perfect. The Tsar is the sun. But the reality that the stores are not that well. The prices skyrocket, the inflation is up, and people are poor. What happened? Well, it's them who were in charge of the economy for a long time. They messed up. They made mistakes. Or perhaps they even worked for the enemies of Russia. Nabiulina, Reshetnikov, Siluanov, and the others will have to answer. They will be sacrificed. They will be thrown to the mob to be lynched. And they know that. And you know what? This is what happens. I'm going to show you right now. This is an incredibly brave fella, and he spoke. His speech is about 12 minutes. I want you to watch at least a part of it. The guy is incredible. This is the Senator Makarov. He is... he's one of the most heavyweight senators in Russian parliament. He is in charge of the committee of the federal budget and finances. So he knows exactly what's going on in Russia. And he lived in the USSR. He's old enough. He's 70, old enough to remember the USSR. And he held high position jobs back then. And this is what he has to say. Now, he is at the breakfast sponsored by Sber, Russia's largest bank. And that's what the rulers are sitting. And then he was invited to speak, and that's what he said. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. The day has come that we could speak of the problems. I will be pausing. I apologize. I'll be translating on the fly. The breakfast of the bear, once a year event. The place. Why are you laughing at me? That's just not. Well, I've been thinking where to start. Well, I wanted to start with the elephant in the room. And then I saw the happy face of Dmitry Peskov, and I would start with Peskov. And then Peskov is sitting right there laughing. Dmitry Peskov is the press secretary of Vladimir Putin. So you see, it's everyone who is who in this vertical of Russia, in Putin's Russia, right there, having breakfast at Sber. Besides Putin, of course, he never does that. He lives in the clouds. Dmitry Peskov yesterday made a fantastic statement that all of a sudden it turns out that the Western companies are not going to come back to Russia. And I'm sure that I was feeling the same feelings that Dmitry Peskov and all of us here were feeling outraged. Outraged. The Western company is not going to come to Russia. How is that so? How is that so? We already set up rules for these companies to come back. And they're not coming back? Outrage. Dmitry Peskov. Are we feeling the same? Yeah, I see it on your face. We're feeling the same. Yes, Peskov having a good time. But actually, he's not having a good time. Look, his face, he was laughing, but now he's not feeling that well. He's not having a good time, because I think he understands where this guy is going to. The elephant in the room is English word that we are discussing something. There's one factor, very important ones, but we're too ashamed to speak about that. But as we're not discussing the room, elephant in the room, And so the assumptions that we make, if we're not talking about the elephant, assumptions that we make in the beginning of our discussion, they get corroded. Pardon me. They get corroded towards the end of the discussion. Why am I speaking about this? Because our country has always been and is the country of bright future. Unfortunately, Russia is the country with bright future, but unfortunately with unpredictable past. This is the biggest problem. And then when the business is not talking about the biggest problem, the lack of investments and the lack of proper institutions. And then the institutions is basically a very simple thing. It's ability to go to court and defend your right to own property. And if you so if your rights, you have a right to defend yourself in the court, and the decision that court makes would be a fair one. And this is the institute. This is what's needed in the country, and there's a lack of it. And this is the system of defending the private property based on not the connections, whoever has better connections with governors or with generals. This is just respect to right of ownership. This is a funny one. And then, right now, it is cleared for us, and thank goodness it is clear that the limitations, statutory limitations, are basically don't exist in Russia any longer. If something happened in the past, now the statute of limitations is counted from the moment when Attorney General's office, the prosecution, learned about it. And if a crime happened 20 years ago and just cannot be tried due to time passed, it was before. And now, when Prosecutor General learns about it yesterday, the statute of limitations starts be counted from yesterday, from the moment that the prosecutors learned about the event. Not just they learned about it, but at the time when they started not liking it. Now we understand. Everything is pretty clear. And this is when we stopped talking about investments climate in Russia. It's a very important question. Now, folks, I'd like to take a pause and look at their faces. They were having breakfast. They were having a good time. They're rulers of Russia. They're mighty, powerful people. And all of a sudden, look at them, how they're looking at Senator Makarov speak. Okay, this is a very good one. Unfortunately, lately, when we talk about the economic, we don't talk about economic problems. Instead, when we bring up an economic problem of some kind, we're looking for enemies. Not the enemies of the people, that's a thing of the past, but the enemies, period. It feels like there are enemies, and they want to destroy lives. They bring us economic problems and all of that. You know, they want to harm our business, they harm our country, harm our economy. This is just usually when somebody is looking for enemies. It's just they have no clue how to run the economy, and they cannot offer anything but printing money. And then that someone wants to acquit his actions, okay, just printing money, and then therefore he blames the enemies. I'm speaking of the past, and I just want to remind you that it happened before. We lived through this before already. And we remember where it led us to. Now, look, this is a very important moment. Okay, everyone is shocked. Remember when this fella started talking, everyone was just having a good time and making jokes, and there was a little bit of noise. But then he's saying things unimaginable. So they are all, look at their faces. Look how they're looking at each other, and they're just staring, and not single sound. German Gref is the guy with a mic right now. He is the head and pretty much the owner of Sber, Russia's largest bank. It's owned by the state, well, at least a big part of it owned by the state. And Gref is in charge. Okay, he's one of the most powerful people in Russia, and he's definitely, he's one of the close friends of Vladimir Putin. They used to work together in the 90s in St. Petersburg, and look, he feels like he has a right to intervene. What he's doing right now is trying to interrupt Senator Makarov. Oh, please forgive me. Oh, no. So, can I please finish, or... Senator Makarov is a very, very sly guy, okay? He knows how to answer and shut off Gref, and then that's what he did. It was classic. Why your face expression is like we have already arrived? So you were talking about the institutions of one of the most important institutions is the Institute of Statute of Limitations. And I was talking to the Siloviki, one of those agencies that can use violence against people. I asked them. He said that, did you study about statute of limitations? And they answered me, yes, my professor was Makarov, this fella, right, the Senator Makarov at the Moscow State University. Yes, he was a professor there a long time ago. He said he's lying. Said I was not a professor when I was giving lectures at Moscow State University, so that's a lie. He just accused Gref of lying. Very elegantly. In order to stop being scared, I would like to cite something. Said, unfortunately, the private property rights are still not defended well enough. The wars for properties are not stopping, and there are wars for properties, and unfortunately, they don't stop even after court decisions are made. And unfortunately, sometimes court decisions are made not under a law of fairness, but unfortunately under pressure or corrupted by one of the sides. We must protect property rights of private property. Not just large corporations, but small businesses as well. And domestic investors, we must protect domestic investors and foreign investors. Guess who said that? That's right, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. When did he say that? Do you know? You're not gonna guess. April 2001. It's been 25 years. Let's be honest with ourselves. Well, we're not young here. We're all, older people here. We've been through a lot. We haven't been able to do what Putin asked us to do. Why are we talking about the investment climate in Russia? The country is living without investment climate, country is getting stronger, the economy is getting stronger. He's being sarcastic, we growing soon, faster or slower, it doesn't matter. Let's discuss how the country can grow without investments. I think it's normal. The recipes. This is before coming here to Sber breakfast, I watched the records of the breakfast that happened in 2019 here in St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And then he's addressing German Gref, the head of Sberbank. Why 2019? That was the start of the national projects, then when they were introduced. We were discussed how the economy will start growing when these projects are introduced. All these questions, he's pointing at Gref, all these questions that you asked right now. And I feel that you also watched the recording of that breakfast, because that's what we discussed back then in 2019, and you discussed that. Quite a few people who were back then in this room, are not here now, are gone. I would like to ask you one picture, and this is classic. Everyone, I want you to look at what this guy is saying, okay? This is not a revolution, but this is something I haven't heard of before. All right, the guy is calling the system its name. All right, so he's asking to put a slide on the TV, I guess. 2019, another professor from the Leningrad, and this is you gotta understand, this guy is being very very satirical, because the St. Petersburg, Leningradsky University, state universities where Putin is coming from, and all the friends and all Siloviki, they came from that university. They're all friends. So another professor from Leningrad University. So 14th of May, 2019, St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. This professor, his last name was Bastrykin, is a prosecutor general of Russian... the head of the investigative committee of Russian Federation. So, and then this guy is citing Bastrykin. He's one of the most dangerous, most evil, most powerful men in Russia. He was giving a lecture to the students at Leningrad University. The lecture was this guy Bastrykin, the head of the investigative committee, was telling the students that these big national projects are not mandatory for large private companies. And that is not right, because the state must create laws obliging these companies to participate in large state-financed in national projects. It's very interesting. This is test I'm performing right now. This is the biggest test for me. Right now, you are sitting, looking at the screen, you're seeing Bastrykin, and you're not laughing. No one is laughing. Back then, everyone sitting in this room were laughing when they saw that. And now, everyone read it, and it's not funny. No one is laughing. Because what he said back in 2019 is becoming the reality. It's a traditional discussion of two professors, from Moscow, from Leningrad. And then Gref is trying to make this a joke. And he said, well, I always felt that I'm undereducated because I'm from Moscow, and you from St. Petersburg are so educated. I'd like to say something else. Unfortunately, we're discussing very important problems. The inflation, the migration, the labor. But without these institutions, this is just nothing, nonsense. And the quality of our institutions, state institutions, we rank 126 in the world. And not all 200 plus countries were counted, but, fewer than that. Oh, I'm sorry. Without the institutions, there will be no future in our country. Again, we're ranked 126. It's not all the countries in the world, but we are at place of 126 out of 134 countries, at the very bottom. I'm not going to tell you the names that are lower than us, but you all know them. We need to discuss not the national projects and how much money they need to be allocated, they are needed to be allocated. This is not, we don't need to discuss that. The state cannot finance constantly everything that is happening in the country. The state doesn't have money for that. Look at their faces. Huh? I love it. Oh, you all know this guy. If you're American, you probably have seen him recently. The special representative, the special envoy Vladimir Putin to America. Yeah. Dmitriev. The good friend of Witkov. They were walking on Arbat Street not too long ago, with their wives. No, not Witkov. Witkov was by himself, being served by a translator from the KGB. And this guy was with his wife and a bunch of other, friends in Moscow. They were having a good time in Moscow. So you all know his face. He went on Fox News, gave interviews and everything. This guy in his own turf right now, in his own water. Anyway, couple more minutes, but then it's not that important part of his speech. But I watched this and I went, wow, my jaw dropped. Senator Makarov, 70-year-old guy, is actually a brave guy. I'm not saying that he is an oppositioner. No, he's a part of Putin's system. He is deep there. He has been helping the Russian state to wage the war on Ukraine. He is one of them. But holy moly, this speech is quite something else. It had an effect of nuclear explosion in the Russian media. The patriots started insulting him, labeling him working for the enemy. He needs to be checked for loyalty and so forth, People just in regular discussions were admiring what he said because he nailed it. Okay, he nailed it. He said that Russian system, the Russia is, the system is that the government in Russia is rotten, basically. And that is so different from what Putin was telling everyone literally next door previous evening. Okay? Absolutely different. Absolutely opposite. Okay? One of Russia's largest caliber politicians in charge of the budgeting, in charge of the finances of Russia, overseeing, I shouldn't say in charge, overseeing, was basically laying out the truth. There were some voices in Russia saying, you know what, he's not scared because he's old, he's 70. Nothing will happen to him. Okay, and then some started saying, well, he's going to get arrested for that. But it doesn't matter what happens to this guy. Because basically, what I see is the process of people of different levels, different walks of life, saying one thing, look, the king is naked, okay? This guy Makarov, Senator Makarov, just started this process. Absolutely incredible morning, Sberbank organized. Absolutely incredible, priceless look on their faces. Absolutely incredible speech by Senator Makarov. I absolutely love it. That, in my eyes, is a slap on Putin's face, on Putin's cheek. I salute Senator Makarov. What can I say? I don't like the guy, but I salute for what he did. I should say what he's done, because it's not over. So, for the first time, calling the oppressive system its real name. Calling, he basically just named the elephant in the room that everyone is so afraid to talk about. About the Siloviki, about real problems in the Russian state. And he did it in a very elegant manner. He was speaking between the lines, so to speak. Now, I love St. Petersburg International Economic Forum 2025 for that. I love. I will definitely keep my eyes open, and this is a huge development that started happening in Russia. The officials coming out and saying the truth. And I think the worse the situation will be in Russia, and obviously someone will have to be answering for that. Okay, and the Putin would be throwing someone to the mob, and the people who are in charge, they understand that, and they know that they could be next arrested, fired, tried, investigated, charged. They know anything can happen to them, and they start resisting. Not resisting, saying, "Oh, we want freedom." No. But they are trying to put something soft to the place when they will be landing on their butts there. Okay, and I believe that this process will be ever increasing in the last few couple years at least. And nothing can be done about that. It reminds me the early years of Perestroika, when Gorbachev came out and said, "You know what? You can disagree with the party line." And people started talking against party line bit by bit. First, it was very, they were very scared, and then the speeches were so weak, but then they started picking up. And I think this is what starts happening now. Unless Putin, of course, gives an order to crush any voices, and the situation will turn different then. But we will see what happens. And before I finish, another incredible occurrence happened in St. Petersburg Economic Forum. Putin's daughters. You know that Putin has a few daughters? Well, we know of he's acknowledged two, and but they've been in the shadows pretty much all the time, and now they're coming up into the limelight. They spoke at the last economic forum, and this one is they had a bigger presence. They one of the daughters moderated one of the panels on импортозамещение, I believe it was, that's replacing foreign goods with Russian goods. And another daughter gave a speech, and it looked like she was on Zoom reading something in front of her, like a piece of paper. It was very weak speech, okay? Why? Why all of a sudden we start seeing Putin's daughters? Now, I'm going to make another live stream about it. I'm just giving you heads up. I think that we start seeing a process of preparing Russians, the society, and perhaps they don't really care much about the society, people. They need to start preparing the elites for the transfer of power. But Putin is so high in the skies right now. He's so detached from the reality. He cannot return to our universe. He needs to maintain his own, to live, to be safe, to be alive. Because if he comes back to this reality, he will have to face this reality and answer questions of this reality. He will have to comment on this reality. It is quite different from what he's talking about. So, Vladimir Putin needs to maintain his own little world. How to do that? To not let the power out of the family. The power needs to be given to his own. And his own, well, he has 2 daughters. There are rumors he has other kids, but they're just rumors. And perhaps if there are, they're not that old. 2 daughters. So we start seeing them, and this is just a theory now, okay? But if we start seeing them more and more, then it'll definitely be looking like preparation for the transfer of power. Friends, that's all I have to say today. That's been my message. Thank you so very much. It's taken me a much longer time than usual. Very important message. There is no time for the live stream chat. Unfortunately, I would like to finish this live stream right now with a prayer, and perhaps if mods allow, then we'll move live stream chat to tomorrow, to Wednesday. Usually Monday and Tuesday are live stream chats, and Wednesday is just a message. So if we could, but we'll discuss that with the moderation team. So friends, thank you so very much. I invite everyone to join me in prayer. We finish every live stream with prayer, and let's do that together today too. If you're religious, please join me, and if you're not, still join me. It doesn't matter. You can call it not a prayer, but anything you like. Sending good vibes, good wishes, sending love to people, to the universe, doesn't matter. It's same in my eyes. Thank you so very much. Dear Lord Jesus Christ, thank you for the day you've given us. Thank you for the food you've placed on our tables, and thank you for the roofs you've given over our heads. Thank you for the love in our lives. Thank you for the loved ones, for our families and children. Thank you for our lives in general. Dear Lord, please give us wisdom to keep the skies above our children's heads peaceful and safe, and raise our children so when they grow up and become adults, they will make this world a better place and will never participate in any wars. Dear Lord, I am asking you to keep our children safe and healthy now until they grow up, and start making good changes. I'm also asking to help Ukraine, to stop the bloodshed in Ukraine. The country has suffered so much. The people need peace. Please help every single Ukrainian who has suffered from this terrible tragedy, answer their prayers, and make their wishes come true. Reach out and touch the hearts and souls of those people responsible for the decision to stop the bloodshed. Remind them that they're still human beings, fill them with love, mercy, empathy, so they wake up from their lethargic sleep and will decide that it needs to be over. I am also asking for my country, Russia. Dear Lord, please help Russia. Assemble your strongest angels with sharpest swords, and have Saint Michael in shining armor lead this army down to this earth to get rid of the demons that have hijacked my country, who we know by their names and by their faces. Bring justice to them, and bring peace, and bring love. And send your angels to allow good Russian people to run the country, to make it peaceful, loving, and respecting. Please help everyone who is traveling, send them safe travels. Please help everyone who is in danger of any kind right now. Send safety, and send good people to those who are seeking for any kind of asylum, running from evil. Please help single mothers and fathers who are struggling, raising their children, trying to make ends meet. Help those who are helping Ukrainians, and help those Ukrainians who are currently under attacks from Russian weapons. Send everyone safety and peace. Dear Lord, please help the sick, the hungry, the cold, the addicted, the jobless, the homeless, the depressed, the betrayed, the ones who are hurting and crying, the ones who are going through divorces, the ones who are losing their faith, the ones who are feeling abandoned and betrayed and left alone. Reach out and touch the heart of every person in need and let them know that you are right next to them, you love them, you have not abandoned them, and you watch every step that they take and help along the way. Please help everyone in need. Dear Lord Jesus Christ, thank you for allowing us to come together and pray. Thank you for everyone who's praying along with me or simply watching us pray. Please make everyone's wish come true and answer everyone's prayer. I want to ask for a few people. They need your help. They are Greg. Please help send recovery, send help, send strength to Greg and his family. Please help Ron Bazoid, Teresa, Janice, Rose Halbert Bronicky, Daniela Fromm and her family, Lee and Brenda, Uli Yun, Ann Larson, Hannah, Jeffrey S. and his family, Katharina, Mark, Tom W., J.R. McKim, Gabin with Gary, Lisa, Harry, Terry Carter, John, Linda, Paula W., Dennis, Jason, Susie, Tim, Dory, Rhonda, John, Taylor, Wayne, Dave, Darla, George, Pamela, Meta, David Porter, and everyone in Chernovtsi, Ukraine, Leif, Randolph, Grace, Dean Spooner at his church, Yelena, Natasha, Michael, Jake, Oля, Dasha, Sky, Svetlana, Sergey, Liz, Ron, Liz, Koshkin Dom, Sandra, Mike and Mike, Petra Olson, Joseph, Millie, Greg, Jodes, Eileen, Philip, Jeff Gibson, Derek Martinez, Lindsay Renate, and Denise Abbott. Thank you so very much, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Friends, thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me a chance to hear my message. Thank you for being a part of Inside Russia. I would like to remind you that you are awesome and you rock. I will make a live stream on, I have not decided yet, either Russian economy or Z community. I want to make it a regular occurrence, basically to give the world understanding what's in the minds, currently in the minds of Z people. Okay, what they think, what their moods are, and things like that. So please come back tomorrow. I don't know what will be in the live stream, but I promise you it'll be interesting. And before I sign off, as usual, I would like to ask you to say something out loud along with me, as loud as you can. It's the usual we say we close the streams with. And that is Carthago delenda est.